Good morning. I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Ag Weather Update. Today's Tuesday, January 21st, a very cold Tuesday, January 21st. This Ag Weather Update brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions.com. I'm coming to you a little bit later in the morning here than I typically would be with my video update. Part of that reason is we're doing an e-learning day today. The kiddos are out of school across the area due to the extreme cold, so a little bit of a different Tuesday morning here, but then I have to admit, I was having a little bit of fun out there as well. This is one of the ways we can enjoy some of these extremely cold temperatures or extremely cold air masses here in the Midwest. When you take a pot of boiling water, throw it up into the air there, the boiling water hits that sub-zero air, and it instantly turns into to water vapor, super cooled water droplets. You get that cloud that forms there. So the effect with this is better the colder it is. It was about 5 degrees below zero Fahrenheit there. When I did this here in central Illinois, got that to occur. But if it's a little bit colder, minus 15, minus 20, you can get really the entire thing to condense there, so you don't even get any water making its way down. Careful not to scald yourself there. But another way that we can have fun here, this was my friend Bill Doms, a friend of mine here in the weather biz. For the last 20 years or so, had some fun in Minnesota where it was 21.8 below zero yesterday, taking some ramen noodles there and freezing them mid-bite. Just some ways that, the cold weather induced insanity starts to set in here in the Midwest. We can have a little bit of fun with that Arctic air mass. But some big impacts here from the cold air. We got a blizzard warning on the Gulf Coast. This is what we woke up to here on Tuesday morning. Blizzard warnings in effect across the Gulf Coast, parts of far eastern Texas, southeastern Texas there, and parts of southern Louisiana. These blizzard warnings are issued when we have the combination of heavy snow or blowing snow with sustained winds over 35 miles per hour, reducing that visibility down to a quarter of a mile or less for a period of 3 hours or more. So we've got this area of heavy snow moving through the area right now. This is a bit of a snapshot here. The blizzard warning in red, winter storm warnings in pink. You got that heavy snow moving out of Texas across portions of Louisiana into southern Mississippi and Alabama. You even have some light snow spreading into parts of Georgia and the Carolinas now, as well as this system makes its way off to the east. But there's an area of low pressure here off the coast, and it's got strong northerly flow blowing into that area of low pressure. And so it's the strong winds in coastal areas here combined with that really heavy snow that's leading to the blowing snow and the reduced visibility across the area, enough to prompt those blizzard warnings. I can animate that here and then take a look at the strong winds associated with that coastal low. It begins to taper off through the day today, but right now, again, you see the circulation, those really strong winds, the strong winds unimpeded across the Gulf, but near coastal areas here, still seeing those gusts getting up to 30 to 40 miles per hour as we head through the rest of the day today into the evening. And with that snow and the fresh snow on the ground, snow falling and fresh snow on the ground there, it's going to be pretty treacherous across the area through the day today into the overnight. I did go looking at some of the webcams here, found some blizzard or at least near blizzard conditions in the Lake Charles, Louisiana area here. This is an I-20 webcam. You can see the heavy snow rates there, the blowing snow. And then the friends over at the National Weather Service office in New Orleans were picking up some of the snow. It's fun to see some of these people who are, not accustomed to seeing snowfall getting to enjoy some of this. I know there's going to be some detrimental impacts here, but I do hope that some people across the area are able to have some fun there. And some of the reason that we get some of the higher impacts, again, we're talking about snowfall rates that some of us in the Midwest may be like, why is that shutting things down? 3 to 6 inches of snow, like I would still go to work that day. My kids should still be in school that day. Well, the thing is they don't have snow plows down there. They don't have the infrastructure here because it only snows like this, once every 5 to 10 years. And in some cases where they're getting heavy snowfall, this is a once in a generation snow event there. And then combine the blizzard conditions. This is it's a very unusual weather event where they don't plan for this kind of thing. So I snapped this screenshot from this is the Galveston, one of the area, Galveston, Texas, one of the webcams there. And I caught this brine truck that's driving through. I wish I snapped it maybe 10 seconds earlier where it was driving through the intersection, but they don't plow the roads here. When they get snow, they just try to put down a bit of a brine on the roads that helps to kind of keep the snow and the ice from sticking and accumulating there to the surfaces, and then kind of hope for the best and tell people to stay home while the snow is on the ground. Now, again, widespread. We're talking about blizzard warnings in Louisiana, but this is a widespread storm. We can take a look at the visible satellite imagery. A couple things stand out. Again, here's the snowpack from the winter storm that kind of got this pattern started on its very, wintry theme here over the last week or so. But this is the snow that fell nearly 2 weeks ago across parts of Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois into Indiana. And then we've got fresh snow that's being deposited here across the Gulf Coast. You see the big cloud shield here. Coastal low, a lot of jet stream support here, tapping into the Gulf of Mexico. big broad area of precipitation. Strong winds with that Arctic air mass across the Great Lakes. We've got the lake effect snow bands in action there again as we go through Tuesday morning. And then we have another area of low pressure that's kind of riding down here on the back end that's going to bring a reinforcing shot of some colder air here over the next 48 hours or so. Now here's a look at the temperatures across the area as we get started Tuesday morning. Again, probably about as cold as it's going to get across parts of the central U.S., the northern plains, central plains, parts of the mid and upper Mississippi Valley. Will finally start to see this coldest air start to pull off to the east over the next 24 to 48 hours. But there you see the extent of the sub-zero temperatures there, all the way down into parts of Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois, and Indiana. And then we've got sub-freezing temperatures all the way down to the Gulf Coast, where we have that winter storm in action. Here's a look at temperatures here just a little bit further off to the east as well here this Tuesday morning. But, I started off talking about the blizzard warning. We have a lot of people from Texas to the Carolinas that are under winter storm warnings here as we're talking about the combination of snow, sleet, freezing rain in some cases here, and a mixture of all of those in some areas as well. Again, the radar here early Tuesday morning. Highest impacts right now moving out of Texas into Louisiana and Mississippi. And then as we get into the afternoon, evening, and overnight, on into tomorrow morning, we'll see this storm moving into parts of Alabama, northern Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. So here's a look at the NAM model, the precipitation forecast over the next 36 hours or so. And again, we get started here Tuesday morning, highest impacts over here from Texas to southern Mississippi. We'll take it through the afternoon. This is now Tuesday evening, and then this would be about dark now as we get to Tuesday, the Tuesday evening commute. So a rough one here in Atlanta, down into southern Mississippi, northern parts of Florida here, Pensacola maybe getting in on a wintry mix. And then I'm pretty concerned about the potential for some freezing rain and some ice accumulations in southern Georgia, northern portions of Florida here, as some of the colder air works its way south, undercutting the rain. So we've got liquid rain that's falling down near the ground where the ground is below freezing. So the rain freezes on contact. You get accumulations on some of the trees, the power lines, and the roadways there. So it could be a really treacherous commute across parts of southern Georgia and northern Florida this evening into the early overnight. But then I also worry about the potential for some power outages as we talk about ice accumulating there in the dense tree canopies that we have in southern Georgia and northern Florida. The snow spreads into the Carolinas overnight tonight and then tapers off as we get into the early morning hours. We may see some significant accumulations here getting into the 4 to 8 inch range across parts of the Carolinas. We've seen those snowfall totals in the forecast ticking upwards, it seems like, every day as we inch a bit closer. So from Texas through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, southern Georgia, northern Florida, into the Carolinas, we have a very disruptive winter storm ongoing. Those cold temperatures linger for the next couple of days as well. They start to warm up as we get into the later part of the week. Total snowfall again over the next 24 hours. We're looking at the heaviest accumulations across parts of southern Louisiana. Also look for some pockets of heavier snowfall across parts of Georgia getting into the Carolinas tonight into early tomorrow morning as well. And then I mentioned here the potential for 1/4 of an inch of ice accumulations here, maybe locally higher amounts across parts of southern Georgia and northern Florida. Pretty concerned about, again, dangerous travel and then the potential for some power outages across that area. Now, I wanted to throw this in here. Some areas across the south seeing some of these wintry elements for the first time. A very easy to understand image here showing how some of the different winter precipitation types form. Again, snow, that's when we have below freezing air all the way through the column of the atmosphere here. Sleet is when we have that snow aloft. It falls through a layer of warm air, again, above our heads. So it melts to liquid, but then we have freezing air near the ground. And so those liquid drops refreeze into ice pellets. That's our sleet. Now across southern Georgia, parts of northern Florida, that's where we have, rain falling through air that's above freezing through much of the area there above our heads and the cloud bases. But then we're below freezing at the ground. So the rain freezes on the ground and it creates treacherous conditions, potentially some power outages. And then, of course, where you have warmer air all the way from the ground up to around the cloud base there, enough for the snow to melt to liquid rain. It falls as rain all the way down to the ground. We'll move off to the west. We have to talk about the fire weather and the Santa Ana winds. Again, we're kind of on the back end of a winter or a wind event here that began over the back half of the weekend and is tapering off through the day today with those wind gusts, reaching 100 miles per hour in some of the foothills there, and in the coastal and valley areas, we're seeing those winds 50 to 70 miles per hour. We have extremely critical fire weather, fire danger conditions in the area north of LA, where we were seeing it, over the last couple of weeks. But now those higher conditions are in place here as we go further south down, towards San Diego, parts of the U.S.-Mexico border there. And those conditions do remain at critical conditions as we head through the day on Wednesday. And as we kind of look at the winds here three things to point out. First, here's the ongoing event. You can see those winds beginning to taper off as we get into the overnight, and they begin to kind of become calm as we get into the day tomorrow. So looking for, a slight increase in the winds as we get into Wednesday afternoon and evening, not nearly what they've been over the last several days, but still keeping at least critical conditions there. I say at least critical. It feels like we're walking things back here, but we calm things down a little bit till we get to Thursday and Friday, looking for maybe another run of these winds. It really is not good until we get to right here. This is kind of the third thing I wanted to point out. There's the ongoing wind event, kind of the ebb and flow Wednesday, Thursday, where we could still at times see these conditions reaching dangerous levels. Look what happens, though, as we get into the weekend. We finally bring an area of low pressure down here that's going to bring some onshore flow. So if we look at the moisture here, again, dry offshore flow continuing. We see that this is now Wednesday. This is now Thursday. Here comes a little ribbon of moisture right as we get into Friday and Saturday. It is not much, but it is just enough to bring some onshore flow, some Pacific moisture, and bring a little bit of precipitation to parts of Southern California. Again, this is not a pattern reversal. This is not a complete end to what has been a really rough winter season across the area, but this is at least, it's something. It's not another round of Santa Ana winds and dry conditions. It's bringing some moisture in there. The higher elevations could get a half an inch or more. Go ahead and here, just kind of pause. This is the European forecast taking us through Sunday night, getting into midnight on Monday, January 27th. Again, you just see it's a little hit of moisture across from the Central Valley, the Sierras, down to parts of Southern California, where we badly need at least some moisture. As we look at the end of the January into early February, again, the pattern, it brings moisture into some areas, but not some of the areas that we really would love to see that happen. Some of the areas that we've seen being favored by those precipitation forecasts over the last couple of weeks. Again, that's the Ohio Valley getting into the Northeast, where we expect that active storm track. That's rather typical of La Nina. We've bounced back and forth whether we're really seeing a typical La Nina pattern, but some of the forecasts here as we go into the end of January, early February, kind of ramping that storm track back up there. What that means, we don't really know. I'll show you here some of the verbatim looks here from the deterministic models here, but then again, looking at the potential for, some colder air, some increased precipitation across the Pacific Northwest, but the forecast overall remains dry across California, down into the southwest parts of the southern plains, where we have that expanding drought concern heading through the late part of the winter into the early spring. Again, this is looking at the February forecast from the European weeklies. They really want to hit this area of low pressure that slides from the east back toward parts of western Canada, the Pacific Northwest, with that ridge of high pressure that's really been kind of locked in from the Gulf of Alaska over toward the western North America, pushing the whole thing west, several hundred miles, and as such bringing in a ridge of high pressure, at least a subtle ridge there across the southeastern U.S., giving us that potential for an active storm track that runs from the plains through the Ohio River Valley. Now again, what does that really mean? It's hard to say, because the pattern shift is a little bit off there into the future. You're kind of just going to loop the next 15 days. The European ensemble here, again, you see the hit of moisture that comes into the Pacific Northwest as we get into the first week of February. And then you see the advertisement here of that active storm track, with storms kind of areas of low pressure developing here across the Red River. And then they run up here into the mid-Atlantic or into the Ohio River Valley. Sometimes you get snow on the north side. Other times you get rain, maybe some severe storms on the south side there. The temperatures, we'll look at when these begin to moderate. Again, extremely cold air in place across the southern U.S. into the central and eastern United States. We'll see those temperatures moderating mid to late week across the northern plains and parts of the upper Midwest, but the real cold, it does linger into late week, into the weekend across the southeastern United States, with reinforcing shots of colder air making its way in. So by the time we get to the last days of January, still pretty cold across a lot of the lower 48. We're seeing some moderation and some modification to that air here across the Canadian Prairie into the northern plains, parts of the upper Midwest. It's going to be warm and dry across those areas, but there is some indication here, some early hints. We could look for more cold air to try and spill in across the continental U.S., parts of the central and eastern U.S., maybe the Great Lakes as we get into the first week of February as well. We're going to finish here with the European deterministic model here that'll just kind of show you what I mean here by the potential for a more active run of storm systems across the Ohio Valley, but not something I have real high confidence in yet in the specifics. So This is the current winter storm running along the southern and southeastern United States. As we get to midweek, we're looking at a lot of cold, dry air in here. We'll get some flurries with some of the ripples within the flow coming in on the back side here. Sometimes we can get some flurries and some snow showers going there. Get a reinforcing shot of colder air that comes in with this next high that kind of settles in here. This is around Thursday, Friday. We'll see those temperatures take kind of a reinforcing dip for a day or two before we start to modify in some areas. This is what we got as we head into the weekend. We're seeing the early indications of maybe some rain in light fashion across parts of the southern United States. We're all the way out to next Tuesday now, getting into the January 27, 28, 29 time frame. Look for the potential for some flurries, some lake effect snow across the Canadian Prairie into the Great Lakes and Northeast. Nothing substantial with that. And then we see the model trying in the first days of February to get a couple of areas of low pressure going, but it's this fast flow that comes in from the Pacific Northwest and then runs in here and then dives in across the Ohio Valley. And so at times storms have trouble phasing. We have difficult times getting actual wrapped up areas of low pressure. Sometimes it's kind of a quick hitting area of precipitation. Now we're 15 days out, so I'm not saying look what's going to happen here when we get out to February 3rd and 4th, but this is what these lows can do in a pattern like this, which is they come racing through the plains in the upper Midwest and they don't have a lot of moisture with them. So this is not one that immediately kind of fixes the snow drought across the northern plains and the upper Midwest. And then as we get further east, we get more in the way of phasing, and then we get these areas of low pressure to start, getting a more organized area of precipitation as we get further off into the east across the Northeast, maybe the Mid-Atlantic or the Ohio Valley at times. What I'm trying to say is it's cold and dry the next 5 days across much of the areas east of the Rockies. As we get into late January or early February, the models kind of want to give us a more active storm track, but I don't have any confidence in how that's going to shake out, who's going to see snow, who's going to see rain, or anything like that. Right now, we're just looking at the blizzard across the south, winter storm conditions expanding across parts of the southeast. Look for some ice in southern Georgia, northern Florida tonight into tomorrow morning. Heavy snow in the Carolinas. The fire weather risk ebbs and flows over the next to 72 hours across California. A quick shot of light precipitation across Southern California comes this weekend, and then the pattern is wide open as we head into next week and beyond. We'll have to get back together and talk about what some of those changes might mean for us as we head on into the end of winter, beginning of spring, which is going to be here before we know it.